What's going on, everybody? It is the NFL experts. It is me, Wayne G, joined by Mark D, who's feeling a little under the weather today.
I am, man. Unfortunately, the bug got me. But luckily, I haven't been sick in like a few years, so I guess I'm lucky that it hit me now and not sooner. So I'm gonna fight through.
All right, cool. Yeah, because we do have some stuff to talk about. Did send a link to Sully. Sully thought he was going on with me today. It's going to be the three of us. So whenever he joins us, we'll have a threesome to talk about
Yeah.
more than just the draft. We got some Super Bowl stuff. But before we do, make sure you are following us on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. It's very easy. It's the same at for everything. It is at NFL. Wrong one. That is at NFL Experts Pod everywhere. NFL Experts is plural at NFL Experts Pod at NFL Experts Pod. Email us NFL Experts Pod at gmail.com. Very easy to remember. Obviously, we love the interaction. Tell us we stink. Tell us we're awesome. Whatever.
Yeah, check us out. Send us a link, send us a comment, a question, anything.
So, as I did mention, we do have some Super Bowl talk. I'm trying to think if I have all the graphics. We might be struggling with the graphics. It's a very technical issue today. So we'll just keep it with just the two of us and out without the graphics. But the Super Bowl happened. We watched it. The Chiefs won again. Before we get into all the storylines surrounding the Super Bowl, what do you think of the game?
For the most part, it was kind of boring, dude, until the fourth quarter. It was really defensive, which I kind of thought was going to happen. I didn't really expect overtime, which is really surprising. But like I sent you in our texts, like I kind of feel like it's going to be the new norm now, is teams going into overtime for the Super Bowl, just because they want it so bad and they're going to fight for it to the very end. And I just feel like it could be the new norm now.
Yeah, it could be. And I think when I was watching it too, here's the thing though, I didn't think it was boring. I know it was very defensive and it seemed kind of slow, but I felt like a lot was happening. Like a team would march down and then fumble just as they're getting ready to score. And then they'd march down the other way and throw an interception before they got. So it's like the ball was moving back and forth. It wasn't just like punt, punt, punt.
Right. Very true. Like, you're right. There was those like kind of come back and forth moments in the game. So you're right. There was. Was there any favorite moments you had in the game?
Um, I don't think there were any favorite moments. I will say this: what I found myself struggling with, and I don't know if you felt this way, probably not because you're a Broncos fan, but I know I talked about how before the game I wanted the 49ers to win. I was like, I want them to win. Mahomes has already got two. But then it's like when the 49ers went up, I'm like, come on, Chiefs, come on back. But then the Chiefs would take the lead and like, come on, 49ers. It was like I didn't know who I wanted to win.
It's good that you didn't have a dog in the race, because that's probably why you were going back and forth. You were like, oh, I want them to win. Oh, I want them to win. Oh, I want them to win. I get it, dude. Like, with the whole time, I was rooting for the 49ers, even though I knew deep down in my heart that Mahomes was going to find a way to win, and he did, unfortunately. But let's talk about some of the storylines. What about the 49ers didn't know the overtime rules?
So that one, first of all, it's puzzling to me because these have been the overtime rules now for years. And I do know that they changed it a little bit, I think, for the Super Bowl. If I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong. It used to be if the team scored a field goal, the other team got the ball. But if the first team scored a touchdown, the game was over. But it sounds like now, even if the first team scores a touchdown, you still get the ball on the other side.
Yes, that is the change. Is before they would both get possessions and a touchdown would win it, but now a touchdown doesn't win it necessarily. You have to beat the team. Like, both teams have to have possessed the ball, and once that happens, so basically, like, if you go down and score, the next team has to come back and score, and then score a 2-point conversion to win. So it's different, but they just want both teams to have the ball, which I understand. But it doesn't make any sense that the Niners weren't really like prepared on it, and the Chiefs were, because this rule was kind of adapted for them because of the whole Josh Allen Mahomes super playoff game they had, like where Allen didn't get the ball and there was all this controversy. I think that's like the main reason why they changed it, and that's why the Chiefs knew what they were doing when they were going into overtime.
Well, I think that they changed it, but not really. Like I said, so the Allen rule was both teams get possession unless the first team scores the touchdown, I thought. Because prior to that, it was just sudden death, straight sudden death. You kick a field goal, you win the game. And they're like, no, we can't have that. We got to give
I think they're sorry, Wayne, go ahead.
I thought that then with the Allen thing, I thought they were saying we're going to give each team a chance unless the first team scores a touchdown. So I thought the whole touchdown get it anyways was like new for the Super Bowl.
And see, maybe like you, maybe the Niners felt the same way. They were like, "Oh, I thought it was like this, but we didn't know it was you could score and still get the ball back." Like they didn't know that part. But like I was saying,
Well,
the Chiefs knew it. Say what?
Well, let's pretend that's the case. Let's pretend that the 49ers thought that the rule was what I thought the rule was, right?
Right.
They kicked a field goal. They know that the Chiefs are getting the ball back. Nobody's surprised yet. And then the Chiefs scored a touchdown. Game over. Like, who was surprised? Like, what did you think was going to happen? Did you thought you kick a field goal, they score a touchdown, you get the ball back? What did you think was going to happen?
Right. Exactly. Like, because they even said that the Chiefs had already planned that if the Niners went down and scored, they were going to score. They were going to go down and score and do the 2-point to win the game. Like they already had the plan in. I don't think the Niners had any kind of plan going into overtime. I don't think they knew. I don't think they thought it was going to go into overtime.
Well, I do have to, I guess, I don't know, ask this question because this was something that I was surprised at watching the game. At the end of the game, the Chiefs are marching down, right? And the clock's winding down, right? They get the ball on the 2-yard line, 3-yard line, whatever it is. And I'm watching the clock go from 15 to 10 to 7, and they're not calling a timeout. I'm like, what if they don't get it? They lose by 3. Like, why are you not calling a timeout? Now they scored the touchdown, they win the game, but it was blowing my mind that they weren't calling a timeout with 15 seconds left.
I think they didn't. I think they just assumed they were going to get the ball if they hadn't scored, because I think that's how it works. I think if they hadn't scored and within the time allowed, it was just going to go into like second overtime, and that's what would have happened.
You're going to overtime when you're losing by 3.
Say what?
No, what I'm saying is that the Chiefs were losing by 3, and then they were going to score this touchdown, which was going to give them the win, but they let the clock wind all the way down to the point that if they didn't get that touchdown, they wouldn't even have a chance for a field goal. It would just be game over. They lost by 3.
Right. I don't understand that either. I was kind of boggled by that myself because I'm still trying to figure out these new rules. Like I'm not totally sure how it all works. I'm like I want to Google it now that after the Super Bowl, after all this controversy about it.
Yeah, I was very puzzled because that's the thing. I'm watching it and I'm like, what are you guys doing? Call a timeout. And they're just like getting up there and they're waving their hands. I'm like, what are you doing?
Maybe they just thought they were going to make it and they were just that sure of themselves. I don't know. Dude.
I mean, that's great, but that definitely doesn't look good if they don't get it.
Right. Very true.
Another storyline that happened within the game. What do you think about Travis Kelce bumping his coach and screaming in his face about being taken out of the game?
Well, I thought that the guy's just passionate as hell, man. Like I get it. Like I don't think he was trying to hurt Andy Reid or in any way like push him down. I think he was just so into the moment. He's like, "Don't take me out of the game. Like I'm one of your best players. Like don't take me out." I think that's kind of the gist of it. He was just like yelling at Andy Reid, like leave me in the game. Like don't take me out. Which I understand because he's like their best player. So and I know he didn't really do anything in that first half. So maybe that's why he was also frustrated. So he wanted more chances for the ball. So like I don't know. I thought it was kind of funny, to be honest.
Well, I do like that Jason Kelce came out at some point or somewhere and said that he crossed the line, that he shouldn't have done that. And I agree because I played sports growing up, baseball, basketball, football, soccer. I played all the sports at a varsity level. And I know that pros is not varsity, but I have never, ever even thought it was possible for a coach and a player to have a player confront the coach like that ever. Like you'd be off the team. You get benched, get kicked off the team. Like, I don't understand. I mean, it doesn't happen in the NBA. You don't see that. Well, Latrell Sprewell choked PJ Claremissimo, but then he was gone. Like you can't do that. You can't confront the coach.
No, I totally agree. I think if they didn't win, it would be way more of a controversy. Don't you think?
Well, yeah, because I think that obviously winning cures everything in every sport. And so kind of getting the trophy made that kind of get put in the back burner, but it's still there. And I just don't understand what was going through Kelce's mind, what he was thinking. I still haven't heard what exactly he said to him. I'm wondering if that'll come out at some point, if it was just like, put me back in the game or what exactly he said. But yeah, he made physical contact with the coach. Now, if that was a referee, he'd be gone, like tossed.
I think if Andy Reid would have maybe fell down, then it'd be bigger of a deal, you know. But I think it's because Andy Reid and how he is with his players. Like that's probably why people just like kind of laughed it off. They were like, and even he did post game. He was like, "Oh, he's just really passionate," and he stuck up for him.
Well, I think he did what he felt he had to do. I mean, because anything he does is going to blow it into a bigger proportion unless he quells it, just like nips it in the bud. So I think in the moment, Andy Reid had to be thinking like, what the hell is this guy thinking? Like, get out of my face.
Right. Like maybe he was like, hey, my girlfriend's here. I need to do something right now. Like,
because I mean, I've seen situations where a guy gets pulled out of the game and loses his stuff. You see it in baseball all the time. Pitcher gets taken out and he goes into the clubhouse. He starts smashing stuff with a bat, whatever. Like he's just angry at himself usually, but he's angry that he got taken out of the game. But he's not he's not shouting at the manager on the mound that he's not coming out.
No, you're right. It was uncalled for. Now that you put it in that perspective, you're right. But like you said, it's just going to be on the back burner now because they won, and nobody's going to really think about it after this.
Now, how about this storyline? This is kind of a storyline that I have written down later, but I'll bring it up now. The idea of all these people with all the hate after the game, right? It's like the people hate Mahomes and people hate Kelsey and people hate Swift and people hate Purdy and people hate Shanahan. And I'm like, where's all this? Why can't we just like people or not? Like, why do you have to hate people? Especially like I think about the Purdy situation, right? Let's start with Purdy. I thought he played really well. This was his best playoff game this year because I thought he looked like crap the last couple of weeks. He actually looked pretty decent in this game. He didn't throw an interception. I thought he played well. Didn't win. Obviously, he played against Patrick Mahomes. You're not going to win. But he played well. And I think that all these people were like, see, that's what we were saying. He's a manager, game manager, system quarterback. He can't win without. I just think it's so stupid.
You know what? Like, I didn't even really think about it until you pointed that out to me, Wayne, that all this hate that goes on after the Super Bowl. Like, I never even dawned on me. Like, I think, and after you had brought that up to me, my first thought was like, maybe it's a lot of like pride and it's a lot of like grief. Like you're so prideful for your team, you're so happy, but then if you're the other person that roots for the Niners, like you're completely grief-stricken about your team, and you're so sad, and like you go through all the stages of depression, whatever, blah blah blah. I don't know. I feel like that's why it is.
Maybe I'm gonna throw some comments up here. I've neglected the comments for the first part of the show. I apologize, everybody. I was really passionate about talking about the Super Bowl. Let's get a couple comments up there. We've got Jim Powell joining the show. Thank you, Jim. He says, after seeing his temper, I hope Taylor never makes him a cold in the middle hot pocket. Could be trouble. I guess. I mean, I don't know if he loses his temper like that all the time. Just during the
I don't think they're eating hot pockets there, Jim.
He says, players are going to play, right? Should we just shake it off?
Right.
And then he finally says, I heard Andy ate all his chicken nuggets.
That's a good one, Jim.
Although somebody eats my chicken nuggets, I'm going off like that too.
I bet you do, Wade. I bet you do.
That is one of my rules. You do not touch my food.
Don't touch my nuggies.
Yeah. So going back to the negativity, I opened up Facebook, obviously, and Facebook's full of negativity to begin with, but it was negativity all about the Super Bowl. And I just thought about in general how human beings are just so unsatisfied. Like we have to get our joy from making other people miserable. That's why there's internet trolls. Like that, we're going to make people miserable. They can't do anything to make themselves happy, so they make other people miserable. And it's like, instead of saying, hey, I like the 49ers, I'm going to say, I hate the Chiefs. It's why can't you just think of the positive side of it?
Like, look at me, Wayne. Like, I'm a diehard Bronco fan. You know this. I hate the Chiefs with a passion, probably a little less hatred for them than the Raiders, but I still hate them. And I'm not one of these guys is gonna go on the internet and like chime in and screw the Chiefs and blah blah blah. It's like, dude, it's a game. Like it's for entertainment for the most part. It's like people take it too seriously, and I'll admit sometimes I do too. But you got to be a fan and not like go get crazy with it and be one. Dude, honestly, a lot of the reasons I don't like get on Twitter or X is because of all that negativity. If everybody just wants to attack one another, and I can't stand it.
Now, within the game, what did you think about the whole kicking game? Because I think when Moody came out and kicked the 55-yarder, then Butker came out and kicked the 57-yarder. I was like, holy moly, the kicker's going to be the MVP of this game.
And then Moody also missed a kick, though, too.
Well, he had a block. It might have cost him the game because that actually changed the whole. It was in the fourth quarter. It was an extra point. And because of the block, the Chiefs only needed a field goal. They didn't need to score a touchdown. So they got the field goal to send it into overtime. Or, I mean, a couple things happened back and forth, but that 1 point was a huge, huge difference.
Yeah, like it's really crazy how we talk crap about kickers all year long. Like, oh, one job, dude, one job. But then, like in these important games, they're like the most important player, which is really crazy. And it's like this every year, dude. It's crazy. Like you need the kicker, even though I kind of like, oh, you don't need kickers. No, you need them, man.
And Jim Powell does say, it poured out into the parade. Who needs to vent that hard? I'm guessing with the Kelsey thing as well, maybe some of the passion. And then, of course, we do
Yeah, he was going crazy on the
have
parade. I
Mike
saw some
Buck.
of it today. He was going nuts.
Mike Buck joins the show. Thank you, Mike, for joining the show. He says, "What it do? How's it going, Mike?" And he says, "Kicker has
What
one
up, Mike?
job, it's an important job: make the kick." Yes, yes, and they were making their kicks.
Yes.
Other than that extra point, which like I said, it got blocked. Doesn't like he missed it wide, left or right. Somebody got a hand on it. Jake
Well, no,
Moody
he
has
kicked
actually
it
been.
too low, dude. He kicked it too low, and that's why they were able to block it.
I think he's been a great kicker this year. He was the best kicker in college football last year. He was the best kicker in the draft, and I
Yeah, they were
really
calling him like
honestly,
Big Money Moody or something like that.
yeah, because he had like a 97% accuracy or something. But I think that he's the reason. Here's what happened. I think Bill Belichick was targeting Moody in the draft. And then when he got taken in the third round, Bill traded up to take Ryland, which that turned out to be a huge mistake.
Of course, Belichick drafted a kicker. That's not a surprise.
Well, I don't think he was expecting him to go so early. I think he was a little disappointed that somebody grabbed him ahead of him.
But like I was saying, Belichick's the only guy that goes after like punters and kickers and, you know.
Now, Buck does ask the question. He says, correct me if I'm wrong. Moody had the most missed blocked kicks this season. I don't know. I mean, Ryland was like 40% accuracy. So I'd have to look into the actual stats on that. Jim
Yeah, me
Powell
too.
says, you can't explain how Kelsey was huffing Reed's aftershave. Then he couldn't miss in the fourth. Right. And let's see. Then
Dude, there are
of
gonna
course
be so
Buck
many
says,
memes about that now. Wow, this is hilarious.
and Buck says it was a close second. Carlson's from Green Bay is a close second on the missed field goal. I do have. Here's another question I had about in the game, and I'm curious if you saw this. I saw it. I was like, "What the hell?" Dre Greenlaw getting injured running on the field.
Oh, dude, that was so heartbreaking for that guy, dude. Just he was just running onto the field, dude, and he tears his Achilles. Like that guy is a big game changer for them. Like, and he had really just got healthy enough to play that game, and then he does that, and it's like, dude, like, it just sucked. It was so hard to see.
For me too, and I don't know if it was because it looked like he'd started to run out into the field, but then stopped because the play wasn't quite over yet, and then started to run out again. I wonder if that like sudden stop is what did it. I think Mark froze up here. Mark, you're a little bit frozen on my end. So if we get that straightened out, we'll come back to that question. I will put a comment up while we are waiting. And that is, we have Jim says, or actually we have Mike says, Wayne, you know, when it's time for it to go, it goes. The kick, right? The kick goes when it's time for it to go. And Jim Powell says, of course they won, Buck. It was in the script. That's another question. When Mark gets back on here, I actually do want to ask about the scripting in the NFL and whatnot. I wonder if I can actually just give him a boot here. And let's see. We'll bring him on. And oh, there we go. He jumped off. So right now it's just me. So I don't think there's a script for the NFL. I mean, that's the controversy that people talk about a lot. I just don't think it's true. I think that like any league, there's teams that people want to win. I'm sure it benefits the league to have certain teams win. But I don't think anything's scripted. At least I hope that it's not. I think deep down as a fan, I'm like maybe 8-year-old me watching the WWF and thinking that Hulk Hogan is actually beating Andre the Giant. I want that to be true. I want the Chiefs to actually be playing and to have actually beaten the 49ers, even though I wanted the 49ers to win that game. So I don't know. Buck says you cannot bet on scripts. That's true. And that's why I think that if it were ever to come out that this was all scripted, I think that that would be devastating for the entire league. let's see. We have Mark back here. We're gonna ask him about the script thing here.
All right, I'm back, Wayne. Sorry, dude. I lost connection.
Oh yeah, no worries. So while you were gone, one of the questions that came up was about the NFL being scripted. What do you think about it? Do you think it is? Do you think there's any truth to that, or is it just 100% speculation, false?
What's your thoughts on it, Wayne?
I just said I think it's completely false, but I said I also think that that's the little kid in me still hoping that WWF is real. That I'm really hoping that this is real too.
It's one of those things, dude. If it was rigged, I wouldn't watch football. Like, so I don't think it is. And like I've said before, when we were talking about like the refs, they're too, sorry to say in layman's terms, they're too dumb to coordinate themselves to fix a game. I'm sorry. I just don't believe that they can do that.
Yeah, me too. 1 second here. I actually want to throw a comment up here because I'm actually messaging Sully here. Yeah. Buck says I would demand my losses back. I'm guessing he likes to bet. We were talking about we don't like betting. He likes to bet. I was like, and then Buck also says, if the NFL is scripted, why isn't the NBA, MLB? Well, some people think that all the leagues are.
Well, yeah, like didn't they have a controversy in the NBA about a ref like fixing games? I forget his name.
Was, Tim Donaghy.
Yeah, so I mean, you know what? Like all this, like I was talking about last week, all this gambling stuff is going to come into people's eyes, and people are going to be talking about, like Mike just said, about asking for money back because they think it's rigged. You're going to hear this so much now, and I can't stand it to a certain degree.
No, me, and I do think that the last couple comments I have here on this topic is, Buck says, if it was scripted, you would always want the Cowboys in the Super Bowl every season. Most talk about team.
Right.
Probably, yeah. And then we have Jim says, I don't really believe it's scripted. I do believe it's favorable calls and blind eyes turned. I'm sure there is a little bit of that. I don't think it's favorable. Some people think it is. The reality is, let's face it, we all think the refs are calling it for the other team against our team, right? Or it's just the way we feel. Like, of course they got that call. Meanwhile, they have 11 penalties to your 2, but no, those 2 that they called on you is all favoritism.
It's like they say in baseball all the time, Wayne, like they want the human element in the game. And well, human element is going to miss a lot of calls. You know what I mean? They're not going to see everything. You just can't. Like, so, and then a lot of people always talk about, Wayne, about, let's just put a chip in the ball, or let's put cameras everywhere, or like the way that you can track everything better. But dude, the technology is not there. Like everybody thinks it's just so easy to do that, but the technology is not there. Like I wish it was. Because I wish if it was there, then we should be putting chips and balls and putting stuff on the goal posts for the first yard lines and all that, just so it's more accurate. But like technology is not there. Maybe someday when the technology is there, maybe we'll see that.
Yeah, well, I said it several shows ago. I said, it is human error, and I think that the refs get it right more than they get it wrong. The ones that get wrong sometimes are huge, but they get it. You watch that game, I don't know how many times you'll see a replay and you see it, like you have to see it from this minuscule, like 1/37th of a second frame, and they got it right, like on the spot with their eyes. Like, how did they do that?
No, you're right. I'm not saying that they're bad all the time, but I mean that human error will come in sometimes, and you'll get that.
And Buck does say, Wayne, you're a Pats fan. Well, ex-Pats fan. Brady got a lot of calls. I think that's not so much a team thing. Obviously, that's more of like every superstar does. Greg Maddux got a lot of strikes that weren't strikes. Michael Jordan got a lot of calls when he was going to the line later in his career, not early in his career. They beat the hell out of him early in his career, but later in his career, he got all the calls. It's just a superstar thing. Nothing wrong with that. We see that in every sport.
Just like Jordan, right?
Let's see. And Buck also said that the tech is there, Mark.
The tech is there. I don't know. Like I have a friend at work, at my job. He's a super smart guy. He's like has over 200 IQ, and he told me, I trust him. I trust his abilities, his smarts. He told me that he doesn't think that the technology is there, and I kind of trust him.
So, and I did have another topic. One last comment here. We have Buck says we had a whole game in Andy's room that was rendered with only a 10-second delay. So
I gotta admit, the Nickelodeon coverage was pretty cool, dude. I thought it was funny. I laughed my butt off at Patrick and SpongeBob.
All right, so how about halftime show? Usher, what do you think about the halftime show?
I wasn't too impressed, to be honest with you, man. Like I've never been a huge fan of Usher. Not to say that I don't Like, I don't dislike his music. I really liked Alicia Keys. Like, I think that was like the highlight of the halftime show.
I mean, she's the the highlight of a lot of shows. But I will say about Usher is that I don't really know his stuff either. Like, I didn't know that song, the last song he did there was like his big famous song. I don't know any of his songs at all. And so I was like, all right, I guess we'll watch it. My wife was super excited to see it 'cause she's a big Usher fan. And here's the, even not knowing all of his songs, I thought it was all right. I thought he did a decent job. It wasn't over the top. He didn't have all kinds of crazy stuff going on. It was, I still remember, was it 2-3 years ago when they had The Weeknd get lost in that gold building and whatever, the camera following him around? That was a nightmare.
I got to admit though, too, Usher, there was one point in the halftime show where he was like, he had his shirt off and he was just wearing sweats, and then he like went off for like 90 seconds or so, and then he came back and like in this full-on gear with roller skates on and everything. I don't know whose team he had, but man, they got him ready to go quick.
The pit crew that got him all with the tires on and everything.
Yeah, dude, it was crazy. Like, I just thought about that. I was like, man, they must have done a lot to get him out there that fast.
Well, my wife was super excited. Like, her mind was blown when Ludacris came in and he was rapping. And again, I know who Ludacris is, but again, he came on and I was like, oh, it's Ludacris. Cool. Like, but she was like, oh my God, Ludacris. And I guess, I don't know, as a country fan, right? I guess if Garth Brooks was performing and then George Strait came in, I'd be like, oh my God, George Strait and Garth Brooks on the same stage. But no, rappers are not into it.
Like, I was pretty into the Dr. Dre Snoop Dogg halftime show. That was probably one of my favorites of all time.
The only, I think, the only downside I had to that, because it was in LA, right? I really wanted a Tupac hologram.
I think everybody did.
Yeah, I think they missed the boat there.
They did. I think the NFL probably didn't want to pay for it. They're being cheap, like with everything else.
Buck does say that the sound was horrible. Had my TV on 100 and I couldn't understand a word. That is what made it bad for me. And then he also says Luda's boots were horrible. Cat still owns him. Okay. I don't know who Cat Williams.
I think so. I don't know. I'm not totally sure what he was referencing either. I guess we're old, Wayne.
Let's get into this topic because this is the real reason that you're on today, and you didn't call in.
I am, yes. This is not the real reason, but I got to defend my guy.
Steve Young. I didn't get the clip, but Steve Young was on the Dan Patrick Show, and he said, for the foreseeable future, it's going to be Allen, Burrow, Mahomes winning Super Bowls. He said, Lamar Jackson's working on it. Herbert's working on it. Maybe CJ Stroud gets there. So there's 6 quarterbacks that he's saying, that's it. These are the guys winning Super Bowls from here on out. And I was so angry about this because I hate when media people who have big followings say stupid things like this, because what he's saying has nothing to do with any of those quarterbacks and nothing to do with football. What he's saying is the way things are today is the way things are always going to be forever. And I feel like as an adult, we all know that's not true.
Right. And I got to admit, I'm the one that brought this topic to Wayne. And I should mention everybody out there, I'm not Sully, it's Mark. But I should also mention he did say that the few guys in the NFC, like, they have to make it and they just have to beat one of those guys one time. He also said that too, which I didn't also agree with. You're right. He kind of just made it sound like it was like, oh, this is how it's going to be. And to a certain degree, I kind of agree with him. I agree with him that he's right. The AFC is stacked. They have CJ Stroud, like he was saying, Herbert, all those guys you just mentioned. I can totally see any one of those guys going to win the Super Bowl if they have the right coach, right team, and now that Herbert's got Harbaugh, like just little things like that. So I think to a certain degree, I think he's right that it might be switched off, but I think he's also wrong that it's just not the narrative. It's not going to be like, because there might be times when someone that you don't expect win the Super Bowl, not Mahomes every year, like, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but it could.
Well, I had said to you, I said, obviously, and I'm glad he brought in Jackson and Stroud and Herbert, but also we've got Jalen Hurts over in the NFC, right? We've got Purdy, who I think is going to get a multi-million-dollar contract when he's a free agent. You've got Caleb Williams is about to be drafted. So is Drake May and Jaden Daniels. Anthony Richardson was injured this year, but he looked amazing over in Indiana before he got hurt. So I said to you, I said, this might be the greatest era of quarterbacks ever.
And I think you're right. And I think I think Steve Young was also right to a degree about how he was saying that all these quarterbacks that are good, they got to be mobile to a certain degree. They got to be able to pick up that 60 to 100 yards besides flinging it around. Like that is the nowadays NFL. Like you were saying, like that is the NFL that we get to watch now. The generation of these new quarterbacks, this new hybrid where they can pass, they can do it all. Like back in our day, we didn't see guys like that, like Marino, guys like that. They just stayed in the pocket. They didn't move. You know, if they didn't see somebody open, it wasn't going to go anywhere. And that's just how it was.
Oh,
it's not how it is now in the NFL.
Yeah, Randall Cunningham was like the first guy I think that really ran around a lot.
Right. Yeah, but there wasn't very many, and now that's like the standard in the NFL. And you're right. We do get to see the greatest generation of quarterbacks, and I'm really glad I get to see it because I got to see Manning and Brady too. So I get to see some new Hall of Famers, hopefully.
So let's see. Well, I'm actually going to go up here. I missed a couple of things. We have Jim Powell. Me and the boys was watching the other cast for a bit, and they had Dora the Explorer on, and she said, "Do you need a map to find the end zone?" I lost it.
I didn't see that, but I saw some.
That is funny. He also says AFC still has Mahomes. Don't sleep on the. No, yeah, he does. I mean, Mahomes he's the top dog. And I said this to Mark after the game. I said, I think that basically it's the rest of the league versus Mahomes at this point.
And I totally agree with you on that. That's what Steve Young really should have said. He should have just been like, look, all these guys are probably going to come second place to this guy because he's the GOAT. He's going to be better than Brady. He's amazing. We watch him every week and see all the crazy things he does with his no-look passes and his left-handed throws that he killed my Broncos on Monday night, stuff like that. Like, the dude's amazing. And it's like you said, like Jim said, or Mike said, that you can't sleep on the GOAT.
Now, then he comes back with something like this, which he says, it's only that way in terms of the quarterbacks being great because you can't hit. He said, if you were able to hit the wide receiver going over the middle, punish guys for trying to extend the play, people like Purdy, Richards, etc., Richardson would not be any good. I disagree. I think they would adapt. I don't want, let's not be the old man, get off my lawn people here, right? I mean, I know there's people out there like, well, LeBron James, if he played in Jordan's era, he would cry every time I don't want to hear that. LeBron James would adapt. He's one of the greatest athletes we've ever seen. He's 6'8", 270 pounds. He would be fine against Bill Laimbeer, I promise. But I don't want to be that guy who's like, oh, they can't hit guys anymore. And that's why these quarterbacks are so good. These quarterbacks are so good because of the greatest athletes we've seen. Anthony Richardson is 6'5", 245 pounds, and he runs a 4.4. And he's got a cannon for an arm. So it's not just that people can't hit him. If they did, they would be the ones getting hurt.
Right. He's like Cam Newton hybrid 4.0, like could be better than him possibly. I'm kind of curious to see it because he got hurt this year. So hopefully we'll be able to see that next season.
And then I'll put two more up here real quick, and then we're going to get to my next topic for you. Buck is correct about hitting. It was the real Roman gladiator stuff out there until they put dresses on. As in, Jim, I'm telling you, we can't keep saying with a 70-year-old, I remember when they wore leather helmets and you were allowed to hit people with baseball bats on the field.
Right, get off my lawn!
Don't get me wrong. I don't want to see the clothesline across the head, but being able to hit a guy hard without the flag would be nice. It's all about safety. It's really all about safety. And I think I've been one of the guys who's been on board when all these other people were coming out saying the dresses might as well make it flag football, right? It's all about safety. You can't hit a guy if he can't see the hit coming. You're endangering his life, not just him missing the ball. You could kill him in that hit. And we've seen some hits back in the day that were put on guys. I think Antonio Brown with the Bengals. Yeah, just completely. I mean, I thought he killed him. I saw Josh Cribbs get hit on a kick return. I thought he just laid there shaking with his helmet, like because the helmet came off. I said, oh my God, he's dead. We can't have that stuff. So the rules are there to protect the players. I'm in favor of that. I don't think they are too extreme at all.
And I'm glad that you mentioned the AB thing, dude, because I think that guy's he's changed since that hit happened. Like he's totally got CTE. He's acting all crazy. Like I feel like that hit is what did it.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that it's just too. I like the safety rules, guys. You're not going to convince me otherwise. Argue in the chat about it, but I'm not going to argue anymore about the safety. I am in favor of the safety. Another thing Steve Young said, though, so I want to bring this up because Steve Young is your guy.
He is my guy.
He said, if you want to beat Patrick Mahomes, hold him under 20 points. He goes, if you hold Mahomes under 20 points, you will beat him 90% of the time, 9 times out of 10. Now, I'm curious because when he said that, the hair on the back of my neck stood up because I thought, does he really know the statistic of how Mahomes does in games under 20 points? Or is he just saying, in general, hey, if you just don't let him score, he's not going to win? And I was curious. I looked it up. Do you know how many games Mahomes has played that were under 20 points? Or his
Probably not many. Probably not many.
No, 18. So he's played 96 career games. 18 of them were under 20 points. And
how many of those were losses?
He's 4-14 when he scores under 20.
Oh. So maybe he knew that fact. Is that what you're saying?
Well, again, 90% is a jump because that's 28%. But then I started thinking about it, and I didn't have time to look up all the stats. But I started thinking, if you hold any quarterback under 20, you've got a 72% chance of beating them. Like, who is winning games consistently scoring less than 20 points?
Right. Yeah. No, I didn't even honestly I didn't even think about that comment at all, Wayne. And it's funny the things that you get fired up about because I just totally glossed over that. Like, but you're right. Like that's another generality comment that he just made was like, oh, you hold him under 20. You're right. Any quarterback under 20, you might beat him. Like, of course, you're right. And I'm surprised I don't think of that stuff. It's crazy that you find these things you get to get fired up about. I love it.
Well, anything statistic related, because I actually have a statistics nut. Like you mentioned, you're being turned into a draft nut, so I'm a statistics
nut. I am. You guys have turned me into a draft nerd. I've been doing mock drafts like every day. It's stupid.
All right, so I do have to ask this one. So it looks like Sully is not going to make it today. He got sidetracked, so we're not going to get some draft talk per se. We were going to talk about offensive linemen, but I do have some draft stuff I can talk to you about. And I was going to bring this up to Sully as well, but I'll bring it up to you. We'll talk a little bit about the draft now that you're getting more into the draft stuff, right?
Yes, yes.
Merril Hoge on a podcast came out and said this was big news. He said Caleb Williams is not special. He goes, he is not a special quarterback. And he goes, the Bears are thinking they're going to take this guy because they missed on Patrick Mahomes, whatever, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, whatever it was. Now they're thinking they're going to get Patrick Mahomes. He goes, he is not Patrick Mahomes. He's not a special quarterback. And I know that we had Sully on here, and this is why I wanted to ask him, because he said that he looks very special. And I'm curious to get your thoughts on Merril Hoge saying, is this just like a hot take? You know, let's get a hot take out of it. Or do you think Merril Hoge has some merit to it?
Honestly, Wayne, the reason why I sent this to you is because I respect a lot of what Merril Hoge says. He's been right about a lot of predictions. I can't necessarily name off the ones that he said Johnny Manziel wasn't going to work out. There was a few others, and he was right about these. So when he came out and said this, it kind of surprised me. I was like, wow, this is like the one guy out of all these people that are like saying, no, he's not special. He's an overrated USC quarterback. It's basically what he said. And like I'm kind of puzzled, to be honest with you, because I'm like, I hear everybody else say, oh, he's this generational quarterback. He's like a John Elway, Andrew Luck, blah, blah, blah. But then you hear him say he's not special. And then he tells me, and then I hear the little stats that he brings up about how when he runs out of the pocket, he's not very accurate. And like Merril Hoge does really deep dives into tape. So he's probably watched every game on this guy in college, I'm sure. And he also said that like he's not going to have that perfect O-line in the NFL. So like he's going to have to learn how to be more accurate. And it was just crazy to hear all these different stats that I never even knew about this guy, to know like, and so to me, honestly, like I kind of trust his opinion.
I do as well. And I'll get into my reasons, because I did write down some of the things that he has predicted or said. Before I do, I have Jim Powell says, I believe anything Merril says. And yeah, I mean, he's got a track record of being right more often. Buck says Penix is the best quarterback in the draft. I disagree with you, Buck. I like Penix a lot. I mean, I really like Penix a lot, and I have for some time, but I still think that the other three guys I would take ahead of him. He then says Hodge is pretty smart. It texts me at least 8 times a week. I don't know if you mean Merril Hoge is texting you 8 times a week. And then he said,
way to throw a name out there, Mike.
He says, you learn from players watching practice film and more than game film. So you're saying watching practice more than watching the tape. So here's, like I said, I wrote down the things that Merrill Hodge had said in the past. You brought up Johnny Manziel. He said he's guaranteed. He's got bust written all over him. I think there were a lot of people saying that. So it isn't like he was out on a limb on that one, because there were a lot of people kind of on that fence.
Right. That's the only one I could
the
think
same
of.
Thing. Well, the same thing is he said that he would take CJ Stroud over Bryce Young. He said CJ, but again, that was one of those 50-50 splits. People were going to go either way. Now, here's where it gets interesting. When Jadeveon Clowney was the first pick in the draft, Merrill Hodge's take on Jadeveon Clowney was he's a great athlete, phenomenal athlete. He's an average football player. And people thought that was bananas because we had seen these highlights of Jadeveon Clowney knocking the guy's helmet off at Michigan. It was just crazy. And then Jadeveon Clowney obviously was a freak at the combine, and he's had a very average NFL career.
He's been tossed around from like team to team also, dude. Like no team really wants to keep him because I don't know if he's like a cancer in the locker room or what, but he's been tossed around from the Browns to the Ravens to who's he playing for now? I don't even know.
He was with Seattle he was with the Ravens last year.
Ravens.
Now he's going to be a free agent. But here's my take on Clowney, and Sully's the one that pointed this out to me. This is way back in the draft too, is that Sully was saying that Clowney is misused is because they see him at 6'5", 6'6", 4.3 speed, just a freak athlete. And you think this guy's an edge rusher like TJ Watt or Nick Bosa, right? But Clowney's actually a strong side, like run stopping defensive end, not a quarterback sacking defensive end. So I think a lot of the quote unquote average that people throw on him is because of what the expectation was. Whereas if you put him on the strong side, when he was in Cleveland opposite Myles Garrett was blitzing the quarterback. Clowney was stuffing the run. It was a perfect fit. But I think that expectation of Clowney should be getting 11, 12, 13 sacks a season is why people think he's a disappointment.
So you think he was used wrong his whole career? You think?
I think, because you're putting him on the weak side, trying to get him to blitz the quarterback, but that's not what he's built for. Or that's not what his game is. His game is stuffing the run. So if you put a guy out there who's supposed to stuff the run and you're expecting him to get 11 sacks at the end of the season when he has 4.5, you're like, oh, this guy was a disappointment. Well, maybe he had 22 stops. Like you got to use him the right way. He's not your edge rusher, even though he has all those skills. That's not what he's built for.
There's some good points there, Wayne. I didn't know any of that stuff. But yeah, maybe he wasn't used right. And maybe that's why he was tossed around, because maybe he was trying to find the right system for his style.
Speaking of Clowney, we do have Buck jumps in. He says Clowney had a lazy NFL career. I don't think he's lazy. I actually watch him play. He's got a good motor. I think, again, he's just not a guy who's going to rack up sacks for you. Jim Powell says Clowney should have been Greg Lloyd Jr. Hodge reference. Merrill Hodge reference. And then Buck says he may have been used wrong, but doesn't excuse. I don't see a lack of effort. Maybe I'm missing it, but I don't see a lack of effort from him. I just see him being expected to do something and not being able to do it.
Wayne, was there any other predictions that he had besides that one?
Yes. So then that was a big one. And then he also had, this was what really got him to notoriety, right? Was back in 2006. Vince Young, right, was the pride of Texas. They just played the greatest college football game in history, USC versus Texas. And Vince Young looked great in that game. If you remember correctly, I think Young was the 3rd or 4th pick in the draft. Matt Leinart from USC was like the 11th or 12th pick in the draft. And Merrill Hodge, before the draft, said, I would not take Vince Young or Matt Leinart in the first round of this draft. I would not take either one of them. He said, the only quarterback I would take in the first round of this draft is Jay Cutler. And now and everyone's like, you're crazy. Vince Young's this exciting young guy. We fast forward, this was 18 years ago. 18 years later, Vince Young had a 4-year career. Matt Leinart had a 3-year career. Jay Cutler had a 13, 14-year career. Right. So again,
trust me, I would know he was here.
Yeah. And he didn't win anything, but he was a good quarterback. And so I don't know. That's why I think of this whole Merrill Hodge thing. I'm like, I disagree with him about Caleb Williams, but 5-6 years from now, are we going to look back and be like, man, he got it right again?
Right. This is one of those long game things that he predicts, I guess. We'll have to wait and see. But do you think this causes other teams to question Caleb Williams' talent? I think it might.
I don't think too many teams are putting stock into what Merrill Hodge or Mel Kiper or anyone like that says. I think they make their own evaluations. And I agree with what Sully's saying, that the tape on Williams last year was amazing, right? He won the Heisman. I mean, he had a really good year. This year it wasn't as amazing. Still good. I mean, 38 touchdowns, I think the 6 interceptions. I think the thing that he gets unfairly criticized for is that game against Oregon when they lost and he went up into the stands and started crying, right? And people were like, "Oh, he doesn't have the mental fortitude to be an NFL quarterback." Dude, I don't care. I don't care if you cry after every friggin' interception. Like, I liked it. I thought that showed that he's a competitor. Like, that's how much it affected him to lose the game. That he really wanted to win.
Dude, Wayne, that makes me mad when they talk about that because it's like, what is it wrong to be emotional? Like the guy was sad he lost to Oregon in a big important game. He knew that he needed to win that game. Yeah, so he was upset and sad. Like I don't understand the whole stigma about like being emotional is a bad thing. Like I don't like that.
Buck says I don't listen too much to mock drafts.
Yeah, it's the lion season, as they say.
Yeah,
everybody's lying.
They all like lie to each other. They pay a scout way too much money to listen to someone. Yeah, that's why I agree. I don't think they listen to. Although Mike Mayock was hired to be the Raiders GM after being a draft analyst on ESPN. So
and then he drafted freaking terrible after that. It's like he drafted Clelin Ferrell. Like I can't remember the other guys. Like he's lucky that Max Crosby worked out.
Oh, no, his whole regime was it? They had the 2 corners where they had the corner that went to jail. Arnett, right? Went to jail. You had the wide receiver went to jail, Henry Ruggs.
Right.
You know, you had your first round pick out of Alabama, who was the tackle out of Alabama. He lasted 1 year. They traded him. He was a first round pick.
Yeah, I'm drawing a blank on his name. Yeah, but yeah, remember that year they had like 3 first round picks, and they like busted on all of them.
Yeah, because Mel Kiper and those guys should not be making picks. Let's see, Buck here. I think that's I can player that cry like babies after the game. I disagree, Buck.
Don't cry.
Let's get that toxic masculinity out of here. You know, it's okay for guys to cry. I actually like it. I think one of my favorite highlights in golf is Tiger Woods winning the Master, coming over and hugging his dad and just like sobbing on his dad's shoulder. Like I love that. Like that's seeing that emotion.
And also, Wayne, we can't really judge these players until we've actually been in these kind of moments. You know, like these are crazy moments that these athletes are in. Incredible stuff. Yeah, their emotions are going to come over you. It's human nature, dude.
I think. Well, and these kids, they're kids too. We have to remember they're 19, 20-year-old kids. They're not 30-year-old men.
Right.
And
like but I'm just saying, even 30-year-old men can have emotions, man.
Yeah. Jim House says, yes, emotions like that have no place, only rage. Again, we're getting into that whole thing. I had a linebacker, very good linebacker, cried like a 4-year-old after each game. Then he would affect my practice the whole next week. Well, that's a different story, Buck. So if he's dragging practice down, that's a totally different story than just being upset about losing the game and crying in the locker room. I have no problem with that. But yeah, again, if you're let it, rag you all week, then, you need to grow up. He cried after he won, not a loss. Who's that? Your linebacker? Because with Williams,
they call those happy tears, Wayne? Happy tears? I don't know how I've never felt that.
I have once. 15-year-old because of NIL deals. They're officially men now. I disagree. All right, so I'll tell you my story about almost crying happy tears. I felt them well up. I felt my throat get choked up, and I felt my eyes water. I was 12 years old, and it was Little League, and we were playing in the playoffs in Little League, and we were going up against a team that was way better. They're like undefeated, and they're way better than us, and we played them so tight, and it was what was it, 4-4? No, I'm sorry, 4-3. They were up 4-3 in the 6th inning. So that's the last inning in Little League. They were up 4-3. Bases loaded, and I get up, and there's 2 outs, and I'm like, okay, first pitch. It's like a foot outside. Strike. We're talking about those favorable calls. And I kind of looked at the I'm like, what? Okay, whatever. Next pitch comes, same spot. Strike. I'm like, what? The 0-2 now. I actually stepped up, put my toes on the plate. They're like touching the plate. So that the next pitch that came in there, I was going to swing and hit it. I hit it off the wall on the fly. Double. All 3 runs score. We won 6-4. And I just remember like, everyone's jumping on me and like, and I just remember feeling like I was going to cry. Like I was so happy that I thought that's the only time I think I've ever came close to crying from happiness.
And like I was saying, you got to be in that kind of a moment to feel those type of emotions, man.
Yeah, absolutely. What is this? Oh, Buck. Good. So we were talking movies. That's my forte as well. Watch the Underdog movie on Prime with Snoop Dogg. Watch how they lose their last game. That's how it should be. I don't know. I didn't watch it.
I'm gonna have to
If it
watch it. I
disagrees
heard
with my
good things about it.
yeah, but if it disagrees with my philosophy, I'm not going to watch it. I don't watch things that disagree with me. Uh, and then Jim Powell says, "My dad tripped me when I was learning to walk, so I would go through life tough. Crying don't cut it." Again, see, like I said, we're more progressive. I'm not gonna say we're woke. I'm more progressive. I definitely am in favor of guys crying. I'm in favor if a guy wants to wear a dress, I'm cool with that. A lot of people like got on like Russell Westbrook's case, right? Russell Westbrook wore like a skirt and something to the game, and I was like, good for him. Like, why do you care? It's like getting mad that somebody wore a Metallica shirt instead of an AC/DC shirt. Like, it's what he wants to wear. He feels comfortable in it. He's not making you wear it. He's not lifting up the skirt and flashing his junk at you. So, like, why do you care if he wants to wear a skirt? I have no problem with Russell Westbrook wearing a skirt and crying after a basketball game. It does not bother me.
Me too, Wayne. Let's be progressive. We're not woke. We're progressive.
That's right. We're more advanced human beings. And which is funny because Buck actually said woke NFL experts.
Ha!
I think there's like progressive NFL experts. And here's another topic, actually, since we have a little bit of time to kill.
Everyone gets a medal.
Yeah. I think sometimes
we're not like that, Mike. Come on, man.
But I think sometimes everyone should get a medal, right? So it depends. I'll give you the situation. My daughter played soccer for the town. It was a town soccer league, and everyone who played got like a little like metal pin that said Laconia Soccer, right? The team that won the championship, everyone got trophies. So not everyone got trophies, just the team that won the championship got trophies. But everyone who played in the league that year got a little metal pin to put on your shirt. And my daughter loved it. And I thought that's cool. It's not like, hey, you're second place, you get a trophy, but it's like everyone gets a participation award because it encourages you to come back and participate again next year.
Right. Which I kind of think they're trying to do with both teams getting trophies and whatnot. I like that, the medal thing. That's a really good way of doing it. Like everybody's still getting a piece of something, but you're not getting like what the championship earned, which is cool. I like that.
I think that's cool. I don't agree with the trophies again. Like if you're going first place, second place trophies, and the second place trophies are smaller, that I'm cool with that, But like, I don't agree with giving everybody the same award. There should be some sort of incentive for being the best. But I have no problem with giving everybody something just for being there.
I just gotta say, Mike, there's a total difference from crying and from giving everybody a medal in sports. Totally different.
I'm gonna cry if somebody gives me a medal. Like that. Or because I didn't get the trophy.
Right.
Let's see now. Well, actually, I'll say Buck says medal pin is cool. It is cool. It was a cool thing. It's different than a trophy. Jim Powell says everyone gets a medal. You end up screaming at your coach. I don't think so, Jim. I think that
that's a good one, Jim. I like it.
How it works out. And then, of course, Buck was saying, don't hate on Kelsey. So I don't know. We haven't done our 2-minute drill in a while because we've had Sully on. You have anything 2 minutes? What's that?
We haven't. I'm kind of been sad about it, Wayne.
Well, what do you got? What do you got for the 2-minute drill?
You're throwing me on the spot here. Like, okay, I have trying to think what's something that's really angering me right now in the NFL. I don't know if I have it. Give me a minute to think about it. What do you got, Wayne?
I don't really have much. Again, we went through the whole trophy thing. Now, Buck throws out the idea. Here we go. I'll let Buck decide this. Fields to the Steelers. I don't hate it. I mean, they need a quarterback. Kenny Pickett's not the answer. Justin Fields is a really good quarterback. I think that he would be very good in Pittsburgh. That's a great spot for him. Anywhere's a great spot for Justin Fields. So I think that he goes there. That's good. Atlanta's good. Even, New England, there was talk about, I saw one trade proposed where it was New England trades the 3rd overall pick. They get the Bears' 9th pick in Fields. And then with the 9th pick, they take Odunze or Bowers or somebody like that. And I thought, well, that works out. And it works out for the Bears, who then at 3 can take Marvin Harrison to go with Caleb Williams. So It's a win-win for both teams. Anywhere that Justin Fields goes, he's going to be a winner next year.
I'm not sure the NFL agrees with you on that one, Wayne. But what do you think he gives? What do you think teams give up for him? A second?
I think that what it will inevitably be is a second round pick. I think right now the talk is a fourth or a third. There's going to be a bidding war for him because he's extraordinarily talented. I think it ends up being a second or possibly a conditional second, or one of those situations like I talked about where you could do a pick swap in the first round and you get Fields. That could be a potential, but I think most likely it's going to be a second round pick. And I don't know who's going to pony it up. Maybe Denver, right?
Speaking of Denver, like I figured out what my 2-minute warning is. Okay. So Sean Payton during the Super Bowl went out did his little, whatever you call it, doing his little spiel in the NFL, talking to all the teams, talking to all the shows. And he comes out and he says that there's a possibility of the Broncos keeping Russell Wilson. And then he goes on to say also that he hasn't looked at any footage of any of these quarterbacks, which I hate to, like, I'm going to say it, bullshit, because I know this guy. I'm pretty sure he's probably looked at all their film. He's playing dumb. Like we were saying earlier, how every team lies to each other. This is Sean Payton's way of lying, saying that he hasn't watched any quarterback footage. I think that's total bullshit. I think he's been watching all this stuff because he's a complete nerd. He told all of Radio Row that he was like, oh, I'm not even going to dive into that footage until next week, which is like this week, which I don't buy, for me, it's like, and then it's like, he goes on and says that you don't necessarily have to pick a quarterback. He was like, he had this comment about like, you don't want to follow the NFL train because the NFL train just wants you to pick a quarterback, but a quarterback is not always suddenly what you want. And he brought up the scenario of when the Panthers should have drafted Joey Harrington, but they drafted Julius Peppers instead. And that he put that as an example of like, you don't have to necessarily draft one of those guys just because it's a quarterback. And he goes on to say that if they would have followed that rule, he wouldn't have drafted Alvin Kamara and a lot of other guys that made the Saints really good. So it's like he kind of contradicts himself in both sayings. But then it really makes me mad also that I don't think he's going to pick a quarterback. I talked to you about this, Wayne, off air, that I don't think he's going to pick a quarterback. I think he's so arrogant. He's just like, no, arrogant's probably the wrong word, but he's so confident in players he's going to pick. He might not pick a quarterback, but that's something we really need. So in my theory is that maybe we get somebody like Justin Fields. I don't think him because he's probably too expensive, but somebody like that, like a Jacoby Brissett or I don't know, throw a name out there, Wayne. Like any one of these like free agent guys that can like hold it down for a year or two, you know?
I don't know. I know all the big free agent names. I don't know. Josh Dobbs.
You know, there could be, yeah. You know, I'm just saying, like, we could have somebody as a stopgap for a while until he finds his guy, is what I'm saying, ultimately, which really pisses me off because we need a quarterback.
Well, it's funny that you brought that up as your topic because Mike did say, I have one for you, Mark. Broncos not looking to trade Russ, but wanting to draft a quarterback.
So maybe Russell's the stopgap. I don't know. Maybe that's what they're thinking. Maybe they figure we're paying all this guy all this money anyway. Maybe he could help tutor this new guy. Like, I don't know. But who's the guy they want? I keep hearing Drake May. PFF came out and said that we're going to move up and draft Drake May in the second pick and give up a bunch of stuff. Give up Pat Surtain, which I don't agree with.
Well, I told you weeks ago the guy is Shedeur Sanders, and it's the 2025 draft.
I'm starting to believe that, Wayne. It's starting to come through. It really is.
But you're not going to get that. You're not going to get that number one pick with Russell starting, though.
I don't know. You saw how well he played last year.
He played great. 28 touchdowns to 8 interceptions.
Well, it wasn't a winning record, but yeah, you're right. We won't have that record. I don't know. I don't know what Sean Payton's thinking. I really hope that he knows what he's doing because I have faith in him. But I don't know. Everybody calls him this offensive genius, and I haven't really seen it. I'm kind of hoping to see it next year.
And Buck does say, I heard from Merrill Hodge, Falcons offered 2/3 for Fields. Okay.
Name dropping.
It could be 2/3. And then Jim Powell says, of course he lies. He cheats too. RNFL for L. It's Raiders Nation for life. So Jim, he's thinking Justin Fields, I think maybe to LA. But again, you're in the same boat as the Broncos, not as bad because the Broncos are guaranteed $85 million to Russ over the next 2 years. So that's 42.5 this year if they cut him after June 1st and 42.5 next year, even though he's not there for 2 seasons. Whereas Jimmy Garoppolo's $28 million this year, and then he's gone. He's off the books. So the Raiders have it a little bit better. But yeah, the Raiders could make a play for Justin Fields. I like that.
I could see that more than us doing it.
Yeah. So that's what we have. And we made it an hour without any draft talk. Sully can bring his offensive line game maybe next week.
Yes,
Mark,
we will talk about the fat guys next week as scheduled.
And I can do my impression from Hook again. Not so fat to me. But Mark, I appreciate you powering through the illness to put on the show.
Honestly, this made me feel a little better. I got to talk about my guy, Steve Young. I got to talk football, and I got to talk to you, Wayne. So this all was all good. It made me feel better. I pushed through, and I think I'm on the mend. All
right. Well, hey, thank you, Mark. Thank you, Buck. Thank you, Jim, for chiming in with the comments. It kept us going. We needed that content.
Yes,
you guys supplied it. Yeah, big MVPs. Well, we're all MVPs. Everyone gets an MVP award. So
right, we're the progressive MVPs, Wayne.
That's right. Everybody gets one.
Party on, Wayne.
Party on, Mark.